Russia and Ukraine. If you've watched the news recently, you obviously know what's going on between these two countries. On February 24th, 2022, Russia launched a full-on invasion of Ukraine. But why? Well, in this video, me and my friend are going to try and discover and give you some answers on why this is happening and what Russia exactly wants in Ukraine. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe and turn the notifications bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's get into it. So, Russia and Ukraine. Why is this happening? Well, I think it's happening because it's something that happened over 3 decades ago at the collapse of the USSR. Trivia time. What do you think the USSR stands for? The acronym. Time's up. It means United Soviet Socialist Republic. If you got it right, answer in the comments down below. Okay, but now let's get into it. So, the whole thing, the USSR was a huge country, and I'm pretty sure you know that because it had like, I don't know, 20-something countries because it got more at the end of World War II. So, then in coming close, though, when a man named, I think it's Mikhail Gorbachev, I'm pretty sure, I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. I'm so sorry. I do not mean any offense, but anyway, they, just write down in the comments if I got the name wrong. Anyway, the Ukraine and Russia were both part of the USSR, and it was run by Russia, obviously. But something happened on December 25th, 1991. The USSR collapsed. This is because of all the countries just wanting independence because of Gorbachev's rule kind of gave them a bit more freedom than what they had. Than what they had previous years, I should say. But Russia, then in 1991, it collapsed. And from there, Ukraine got in along with every other country in the USSR. They all got their independence, including Russia. So, from there, then Russia created a Commonwealth of Independent States, which is basically a post-Soviet support group, I guess, which had like some post-Soviet countries in it, and Ukraine was kind of forced to join it, so they joined it. And that's basically what goes on from there, but this is where it gets a bit more interesting. In the next chapter here, the Ukraine discovers that they have nuclear bombs. Now you're wondering, how does this how did they know? How did they ever find out? Well, they had leftovers from the Soviet Union still in their country, and they did not really notice at first until they noticed it. Yeah, that seems very dangerous. Well, Ukraine did not like the idea that they had nukes. So, with the little help of the UN, they made a peace treaty, and Ukraine gave the nukes back to Russia. So, now Russia has the nukes. And they make a peace treaty that basically says if Russia Russia was basically like, if we feel threatened, can we invade you? And they said only with the accordance and charter of the UN. So that means basically the UN would have to make sure it's alright for a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Which, if you're wondering now, that did not happen. That was a complete violation of the peace treaty there. Anyway, so now let's get my friend Iona to talk about it.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if you have nuclear weapons and you don't make a legally binding contract with the charter of the UN, like Russia would have to go through the UN for a legal invasion of Ukraine. But what they did, they violated the terms of the peace treaty, and it became an illegal invasion of Ukraine. See, the reason that the Ukraine never joined... Now, you might be wondering, why did Ukraine not join NATO then? It would seem like an obvious way to stop a Russian invasion. Well, if you're NATO, do you really want a country that is in conflict with a nuclear power in your group? Because that could easily trigger Article 5. So that's why they didn't join NATO, and also another reason is because, well, they felt like like we said, if Russia felt threatened by Ukraine, then they could go through the UN's charter and be able to invade them legally, right? So Felt threatened by Georgia and Ukraine talking to the EU and NATO. So that's why an invasion of Georgia happened in 2008. They were scared that Georgia would join NATO, so they invaded Georgia proper in 2008.
So, yes, they recognized.
That was a long explanation, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, they recognized Georgia's breakaway regions as independent. So, and as I'm kind of getting deja vu there, because it seemed like they did the same, in Ukraine a few years later. But 2008, they invaded Georgia proper, and they were actually making fast progress. But the invasion, I'm not too caught up on the history here, but Georgia is still a country today, so it didn't work too well for Russia. So. Now, the next chapter of this, and it comes in 2014. Obviously, Ukraine is cozying up to the EU and NATO still, and Russia still feels threatened. So, what Russia does is, again, violating the treaty. They go into Ukraine and invade it. Not the main country. There's like this little island, or not island, but it's a peninsula in southern Ukraine called Crimea. And Russia kind of wanted that back since the day the USSR collapsed, I'm pretty sure. So what they did is in 2014, they just completely invaded it and took it. They annexed Crimea. So this is not looking good for Ukraine because Russia, again, with the same reasons they invaded Georgia, they were worried they would not have anywhere to get the USSR back, if that was their intentions, which I kind of think it was, but still. They did the same thing again. So, like I said, deja vu. Now, and the next chapter comes in 2021. As you know, this is where things started to get a little heated up when people knew that it might be time for another Russian invasion because Russia was building up troops at the Ukraine border, and also building up troops and sending them into Belarus, their close ally. That also they had troops basically pointed at northern Ukraine and also had troops in Crimea, so it looked like they have Ukraine completely surrounded. Well, this can then eventually, Russia removed a lot of these troops and said, no, we're not going to invade, don't worry, it's alright. But then, here comes 2022, when they rebuilt up the troops in Belarus, in Crimea, and at their border. So now Ukraine, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, is obviously now he's trying to get peace with Russia. He's like, hey man, please don't invade us. Please, you just invaded us back in 2014. Please don't do this again. And well, Russia basically came in like, but you have in the Donbass region, which they say it's an independent region of Ukraine. There's a bunch of genocide going on there of Russian people, and they think there's Nazis in Zelensky's party. So then comes the day of February 24th, 2022, where Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, made this address. He basically stated that on February 24th, they would be going into the independent regions of Ukraine and invade it, seeking in plans to denazify the country.
Heavy quotes.
So, yeah, heavy quotes around that one. So, this is when, on February 24th, 2022, Russia creates a massive invasion of Ukraine, forcing everything they have and making fast progress. And now they're pointing towards Kyiv. And, of course, it looks like they have Ukraine almost completely surrounded because they're coming in from Crimea, from the Russian border, and from Belarus. And here's a warning, because even Belarus is thinking about helping Russia in this war and invading Ukraine too, which means they would be literally almost completely surrounded, with NATO being on the other side of Ukraine. The U.S. and NATO have supported on Ukraine's side, giving them weapons, but it doesn't look like, and also trying to implement a no-fly zone over Ukraine, which is, because if Russia ignores that, it's basically World War III. So, if Russia, let's just say they implement a no-fly zone over Ukraine, Yeah, well then, if Russia decides to, just ignore it or something, then it's World War III with NATO and, all of that. Because then the US and NATO would have to shoot down Russian airplanes, and Russia would take that as an act of war against the US and NATO, and, well, yeah. Or, they just decide to ignore it. So, this obviously can start World War III, especially if they take down Ukraine and then move on to another country that borders it, like a NATO country like Poland. Then that would definitely start World War III because Article 5 of the NATO Treaty Alliance, which is an attack on one is an attack on all. So, Iona, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's obviously a dangerous situation. There's no doubt about that, and it's obviously a terrible situation to hear about this every day and to see what's happening in Ukraine and just to see all the destruction and all the rubble. Just all of our condolences go out to the Ukrainian people, and we hope that they can push Russia back and regain their country's independence. But of course, like we said before, Russia can completely violate a no-fly zone, which I believe a no-fly zone would be a very risky thing to do. And I really hope that NATO I hope that NATO really kind of doesn't decide to do that, because this is a delicate situation. We're basically holding a piece of glass that's teetering in our hands. If we drop it, then it'll smash and then shards will be everywhere. To avoid the situation, we need to make sure that we handle this the right way, the safe way, and make sure that we can still help Ukraine without without any military presence, just giving Ukraine what they need to win the war.
Well, that's basically the whole timeline of the Russian and Ukraine war. We hope you enjoyed the video, and a big shout out to Iona Yacht for helping me record this.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, you're welcome. And like and subscribe, turn the notifications bell. This is a new style of content, so I really hope you enjoy it. And if it goes well, I might make another video on more topics like geography-wise and geography, history, or geopolitics, whatever. So yes, thank you for watching the video. Big shout out to Iona Yacht for helping me record. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. This is Frogger signing out.